Hey, so I kind of would like to keep up with this channel more. So I thought I would do another discussion about Enneagram 6. So, you know, Enneagram 6s are the people that are known for being the worst case scenario thinkers and the ones who are, it is the central head type. So they are taking in so much through the head that they can be what people would call overthinkers, right? And sometimes they can genuinely think so much that it will have an impact on them and others around them. So, sixes can be the people that think so much that they come to all these conclusions and all these, noticing all these patterns and all these reasoning and rationalization, like, you did this because of this, and trying to rationalize maybe some things that happened in the past, even like they're trying to find reasons and trying to rationalize. And it's such an overthinking kind of tendency with Enneagram 6, right? But I had a thought that, and this is something that I didn't come up with, it is something that is known about sixes, right? Is that even though they are such overthinkers, it will be the sixes a lot of times who will point out things about situations or about the environment that should be pointed out or that will be beneficial that they were pointed out in the future, right? So what I mean is, like in a situation, it'll often be the six who is picking up on something that other people are not picking up on, because the six is so in tune with, for example, what might go wrong, or what's relevant in a situation, what's irrelevant in a situation, what is dangerous, what might come up in the future. Especially if they have like a very intuitive nature. Sixes kind of have a very intuitive nature. They can kind of see possibilities, and they can almost like see patterns, and that can lead to making sort of predictions about what might happen. And so it will be the six a lot of times that will be the one who says, we shouldn't do this because this might happen, or something like that. So I think a lot of times people do think about sixes as the people that maybe sabotage their relationships, for example, with people, because they're like, one of the things that can get sixes into trouble is that they are so in their head at times that it can obviously cause emotional reactivity, depending on also other things in the trifix and things like that. But yeah, like emotional reactivity, blaming, projection, all this rationalization, like this happened because of this, and now this is going to happen because of that, and this kind of sensing of patterns that brings about emotional reaction. So you can see how people are doing things, and after a while you can have like this reaction to it, right? Sixes are one of the reactive types. But I think what we forget is that, like, yes, the Enneagram tells us our, I don't want to say flaws, but it tells us the ways in which we mess up, right? It shows us the ways in which we mess up or sabotage our relationships with people, how we get into trouble in life. But also, it is very difficult just to escape that. You can't necessarily just escape your personality. You can grow and you can learn to understand your patterns more and notice certain things about yourself that you're doing, but you're not going to be able to just snap out of it. I would say most people can't just snap out of their personality, but you know, I like to look at things holistically, if that makes sense. I hope I'm kind of saying it the way that I mean it, but I like to look at, that first of all, why are people doing things? I like to look at that, and then also I like to take into account both the positive and the negative and everything in between, right? So Enneagram shows us where we mess up and shows us ways in which we like things that we need to work on and ways in which we mess up in our relationships with people, in our communication styles. But it can also show us our strengths, right? Like there's a certain dimension of the Enneagram that can show us also our strengths because it comes from the same core. So yes, sixes can be very reactive, at times like dramatic, projecting, blaming, because they're seeing what's going on, right? They're seeing things that are coming in through the intellect, right? So they can notice the patterns, and they can see, okay, this person is this way, or you know, but also it's very difficult to explain. But they also, because they have that thinking core, that they are a thinker and they're a person who notices things, they're observant. Because of that, they can also, there is a positive thing to that they can also warn people. They can make good predictions. They can sort of prepare, right? So because they can see, or they can have a gut feeling about what might go wrong, and so sixes will be the people to warn you. And a lot of times sixes, because of that overthinking nature, they can also expect something to happen that is probably not going to happen, but they're also going to be the people that actually do know what is going to happen, or they know how to prepare for a situation, or maybe they're already prepared for it because they have on some level already thought of it. And I think a lot of times sixes, they're anxious about things that may never happen or probably won't ever happen, but then when something is actually happening that needs attention, then they will actually stay calm and cool and collected. A lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, because they tap into their head and like, what do I actually need to do now? I've spent all this time worrying about things that probably won't happen, and now something is happening. But because I've spent so much time worrying and preparing, I'm now actually prepared in a way, because I can kind of use my cognition to actually do something about the situation, right? That can happen with sixes a lot, is that when something happens, they don't necessarily panic, but they will panic or be anxious about things that their mind is conjuring up. And so I think it's just about like finding a balance, honestly. So sixes are the people that will worry and will like think up scenarios. Sixes are very imaginative as well. Like, it's one expression of the six is that they can be very imaginative thinkers because they can see possibilities and like what might happen, what will happen. They can imagine scenarios very easily because of that. They can be overthinkers because of this tendency as well. Like, maybe if I go up to this person, this will happen or that will happen. There's like a underlying sense of anxiety. There's like a vague sense of anxiety sometimes. So I think from personal experience, I don't always, and sixes, probably other sixes, they don't always necessarily worry about very specific things, although they do that as well. But they sometimes worry about things that are kind of vague, right? It's like an underlying sense of anxiety. It's like the six is so hyped up in terms of their nervous system, right? So I think the sixes are very connected to the response of fight, flight, or freeze, right? Because that's why there's so many sixes in the world as well, and there's a lot of different types of sixes, because that's kind of how the world and humans have evolved, that we kind of need that instinct of survival, right? And there's so many sixes that are so tuned into that. Like, we need the sixes because the sixes will be the ones who alert people, right? But it's just about not taking that overboard in your daily life, not going overboard with that in your daily life and in your interactions with people, in your relationships, in your friendships, right? So with sixes, it's hard to, like when you are a six, it's hard to stop worrying, and you can't just switch it off, because that is how you're like interacting with the world. That is how you're taking in the world, right? A lot of times it's like, no, I'm not always thinking or overthinking, but a lot of times that is kind of how the six mingles with the world, right? It's through the mind. It's the head type. And it sees possibilities. It sees what might happen, what could happen. It's about exploring different ideas, different situations, like what might happen in this situation, right? But in daily life and in daily friendship, like friendships, relationships, the six will get in trouble because of that, because they are sort of bringing up things that other people have forgotten about, or bringing up scenarios that might happen in the future, and other people don't care about it, right? If you're not a six, you're not going to care about it, right? Even if you are a six yourself, if another six comes to you about something like that, you might have a different concern in that moment, so you're not going to necessarily relate to it. But with sixes, the Enneagram is really important for learning and teaching compassion. So where the six should be more compassionate, let's say, is to understand that people who aren't sixes are not going to like worry as much, not going to project as much, or not going to sort of they're not going to have all these ideas that about everything happening, right? That it might happen, or that probably won't happen, but they think it's going to happen, right? If they don't have six anywhere in their trifix, they're not really going to be that much of a warrior in that way. It's the six that's the warrior of the most out of all the types, right? And where other people can be compassionate towards the six is to understand that the six's inner world is so much guided by what is safe, what is not safe. Also, the reaction of flight, fright, and freeze is very strong. So it's like a heightened emotional reactivity, a heightened nervous system, in the sense that like we're always ready for something to happen. So some sixes can be very jumpy. Other sixes are very analytical, because they're trying to like suss out what might go wrong, and what is to try and get as much information about a situation through their head, kind of like a five in a way, but it's a different concept. Like with the six, it is that they're sort of looking at what is the information, trying to learn about the situation so that they know how to navigate that situation safely, and make sure that they come out unharmed and other people come out unharmed, right? So the six should be compassionate about other people not being a six, and other people should be compassionate towards the six for being a six. They can't help that they're a six, right? But the six needs to understand that other people who are not sixes, or who don't have six anywhere, who don't have a strong six in their trifix, like they are not going to necessarily understand the thought process of like, ooh, like just going to all these places about what might go wrong, and just constant thought. And then people who are not sixes should show a level of compassion towards sixes for being a thinker, right? Because it can be hard to think so much about things, right? It can be really hard, but there is a positive to it. And so that's why there should be a level of compassion as well, is that the six will be the person that comes up with the ideas about what to do in a situation. Or they can be very analytical, they can be very intelligent, they can be funny, they can be very loyal. Like they will be the ones to make sure that like all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, right? There's a certain kind of six that is like that. So, I mean, there's so many different types of sixes, but I think with people that aren't sixes, if you just kind of give them the understanding and the compassion that, like, yes, I see you. I see that you're a 6, and you have a mind that is very active, and sometimes that is detrimental, but there's a positive side. There's a positive side to that, right? So you are the one who comes up with these ideas. You're the one who is analytical. You can understand intellectual concepts. You're going to warn me if something is going to go wrong. You can predict. You can have a hunch about things, depending on other things. And you are the person that will suss out a situation sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes the 6 will suss out a situation before people who aren't 6s, right? Yeah, this video is much longer than I was hoping, but I just wanted to have kind of a free-form discussion about 6s, some of the thoughts that I was having, and I will hopefully keep making more videos about the 6 or other Enneagram thoughts that I have. So if you would like more from me, do subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you like this, and share your experiences of being a 6 or interacting with a 6. We are all different, but there's a certain amount of things that we have in common, right? But we're all different. We have different, like, psychological and emotional cores, so that is influencing our personalities and our behavior. So the 6's core is so mental, it's head based, and so that is why they react. They see, they fear, they analyze. They come up with things. They come up with ideas. They try to connect dots and see patterns and like all that stuff that is endearing and can be a good thing, but it can also get them into trouble when they're overthinking with people in their life. Anyway, enough rambling. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.